So, VK on the beat, check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1474 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, the best baseball in the city outside the Dome. Join the club and purchase a membership today at mapleleafsbaseball.com. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning Moneris podcast hosted by FOTM El Grego and Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut, is Ben Johnson. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. How are you?
It's great to meet you. What a pleasure. Honestly, I saw you at the door earlier, and I'm like, Ben Johnson's here. Like, it's wild. So thank you for being here.
Okay, thanks.
Did you get that response often? Like somebody meets you and like, it's almost like you're like a superhero, and it's like, oh my God, you're actually like in the flesh. You're here as a human being.
I'm glad to be above dirt, yeah?
So no shout out to Ridley Funeral Home for you. You're on the right side of the dirt here. And Mary, that laugh you hear, that is FOTM Mary Ormsby. Mary, welcome back to Toronto Mic'd.
It's great to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
And, I have to dock your pay because you were late today.
I'm very, very sorry to both of you. I just hate the Gardner Expressway.
Let the record show Ben was early, and I appreciate that respect, Mr. Johnson, so thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so I just want to let the listenership know that Mary has been here before. But Mary, this is your first visit to the basement.
That's right. It was during COVID, and we were outside in November, I believe. It was a bit cool, but we had a great time.
Yeah, it was October. I'm here to fact check you here,
okay.
Robert Lawson style. So it was October 2020, but it was cool back there. We were in the backyard. How underwhelmed are you by the basement since your only other visit was the backyard, even though it was cool? Like, are you like what are your thoughts on this basement that you probably heard content recorded in this basement, but you've never been here before?
I would say it's really, really cozy.
Oh, that's what the real estate agents say when it's small. Okay, so for people who want to go back and hear the original deep dive of Mary Ormsby, because this episode is going to be about Ben. But if you want to hear about Mary Ormsby and Paul Hunter, Mary, do you know who this Paul Hunter gentleman is?
Never heard of him. It's nice to meet him, though.
You met him for the first time in my backyard in October 2020. That was episode 742. We talked about your decision, both of you, you and Paul. You decided to leave the Toronto Star. We talked about your decades at the paper. We talked about how you were on sports radio on the Fan and the Team. Shout out to the Team 1050. And why there are so few women on the air today on sports radio in this country. And we chatted for 92 minutes. I hope you had a great time.
We did have a great time. It was a lot of fun.
Did you get a lasagna?
I did, and I think I got some beer.
Okay, so now Ben, I learned, I had a good chat with Ben. We're going to hear much more Ben very, very soon here. But Ben no longer drinks, so good on you, Ben. How long have you been sober?
Since 2008.
Okay, did you get a chip or anything, or no? You just don't need to drink, and you choose not to drink. You're not. I
choose not to drink anymore.
Well, that's why Mary's taking the beer
life.
home. You love life. Okay, so good on you. This will all be uncovered in our chat here today. But Mary, you can bring home for Paul and yourself some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery. And I did chat with Ben before because I knew he no longer drinks, and I said, Ben, please tell me you have not given up Italian food. And Ben, you still love Italian food, right?
I still love it, but I can't eat too much pasta because I have food allergies.
Oh, no. What is it a lactose thing? Or
Yes.
Oh, that's okay. Well, listen. Listen, I hear you're a grandfather now, so we can feed the grandkids with the Palma pasta lasagna that you're going to take home with you today.
Okay, thanks.
your grandfather. Like I just said that. But that's amazing. I learned that in Mary's book. So Mary wrote a book called World's Fastest Man: The Incredible Life of Ben Johnson. Mary, good job. I really enjoyed reading this book.
Thank you.
So Mary, before I was going to pass the baton to Ben to take us home. He's had that happen a few times in his life. But tell us, why did you decide to write the World's Fastest Man: The Incredible Life of Ben Johnson?
Well, I think over the years after Seoul, Ben and I kept in touch and would do stories on, different anniversaries of Seoul and try to catch up with some of his business ventures. And along the way, we began chatting about, what happened in Seoul? And so we got asking more questions. And then there was that great documentary, 979. There was a few more bits of information in that made me think, oh, wow, I wonder if we missed something the first time around. So that led to a few stories in the Toronto Star, one being getting hold of Ben's actual copy of his drug test in Seoul.
Yeah.
And from there, Ben became more interested, not just answering questions for Toronto Star stories, but, we began being more engaged with the material. Is there something here more? Would you be interested in writing a book? And eventually I thought, well, after I left the Star, yes, I've got time. I'm interested in this. And I always thought along the way, when we began digging into it, there was a miscarriage of justice that really should be addressed. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell.
What a wild story. Now, before we hear from Ben, I can't believe Ben's here, by the way, because Mary, we can tell the listenership, originally this was just you on Toronto Mic'd. I booked this.
Was it?
Yeah. So originally, I think at least I might have misunderstood a few things, but I had Mary Ormsby visiting, and I was excited to talk to you about the book and talk about Ben. And then you said to me, how about I don't know how you phrased it, but maybe would you like Ben Johnson there as well? And I'm like, Mary, you're now fired. Get out of my basement. I got Ben Johnson. I don't need you anymore, but I'm happy to have you both here. And what are your thoughts on Ben the person? Having covered Ben for so many years and having written this book about Ben Johnson, we're going to talk about him like he's not here, okay? So pretend he's not here. But what are your thoughts on Ben, Ben the human being?
Watch it.
Well, as I got to know him better, through those Star stories and then through this whole process, he is a wonderful companion to be working on a project. He's funny, he's deep, he's punctual, he's always on time, he's never late.
Apparently.
And
take some tips.
Yeah, I will. And eventually, and he was really dedicated to having his voice heard and talking about this book and going to some very deep places at times that were painful and troubling. And he's candid and honest. And I'd say that even if he wasn't sitting here beside me, but right. I learned so much more about him. And if I could say one more thing before you talk to Ben, because I never want to speak for him. And when I said, would you like to have Ben here? I would have to ask Ben, do you want to come here? But he deserved to be shown as someone who is more than this one-dimensional man from Seoul. Complex, rich, full human being who's got a lot to say and is worth everyone's time for a conversation. I felt a pretty great human being.
And it comes across in the book. And again, thank you, Mary, for writing this book. And thank you for connecting me with Ben, because now I get to hear from the man himself. So now I'll plug back in his headphones so he can hear us, because, I didn't have Ben hearing all those words. I was worried what you might say. But a couple of nice notes just to warm Ben up here. Not that he needs warming up, but Tommy Finn wrote in and said, awesome. I just wrote on Twitter that Ben Johnson was coming over to make his Toronto Mike debut, and Tommy Finn said, awesome. I haven't seen him at the Longos in Markham for a while now. He's a good man. So please, let's let Tommy know, Ben, you moved away, right? You didn't just change grocery stores. You actually moved out of the neighborhood.
I moved to the neighborhood, yeah, but I passed there once in a while, but I never have a chance to get him. But since they missed me, I have to go back down there and check it out.
It's funny how when you say, people are always telling me where they've seen Ben in the wild. It's like, there was a Ben spotting. It's like, everyone's just excited to see in the wild. Here's a fun little memory, I think, from Gordon Wong, who said, awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I remember seeing him at the gym once in a while, and all he kept doing was repeating the word Testarossa. Was this a mantra or something? You'd be lifting weights and you'd be like, Testarossa. Come on, let's hear the real talk here.
Testarossa. No, we was at the gym one day and we were just working out, and, everything's come back to my mind about the car that I used to have and how nice it was to have a car. But I don't make it a problem like, worship some material thing, but it was just nice to have as a young boy growing up, like always not to have a Testarossa.
How old were you when you owned that automobile?
I was about 26 years old.
Okay, what are you driving these days?
I'm driving a Cadillac.
Okay, looking at my thing. Okay, I'm ready. It's gonna be like a 95 Honda Civic or something.
I love Honda. Honda's a nice car.
Nothing, no shame in that game at all. Are you kidding me? I drive a bicycle. Okay, so if you can give me a lift somewhere, I'd appreciate it. But here's the place where most people had fond memories of spotting you, and I'm gonna give credit to Pearl Jam Pat first. He goes, I met Ben Johnson outside of Berlin nightclub at Yonge and Eglinton the night Joe Carter hit his World Series walk-off home run. He gave me his autograph. Heck of a nice guy. 979 will always be a gold medal winning time for me. So that's Pearl Jam Pat remembering you at Berlin.
Thank you, Pat.
Speaking of Berlin, and I think, Mary, you can... maybe you've heard this episode or maybe it's in the queue, but did you know, Mary, that Mark Swolinski was over here on Friday?
I did know that.
Okay, so he was here for his exit interview, and even though he hasn't worked at the Toronto Star since last November, it took him a while to get here. But 41 years at the Star, a similar story to yours. He has a brother who was part of the Berlin house band, and Mark was telling me all these great stories about Ben at Berlin. So Ben, was that your go-to nightclub? Like, what are your memories of Berlin at Yonge and Eglinton?
Berlin was very nice. It was a nice crowd, quiet. People enjoy themselves. There's no fussing and fighting. Everybody was just having a good time. People dress good and meet a lot of people, and a lot of people get married out of there. So it was a nice place. And every time I go up, the security always know that I'm coming up, so they always say, "Okay,
you're Ben frickin' Johnson.
Ben's coming in," and we just get a VIP upstairs. So it was a nice club.
Okay, Mary, there should have been a whole chapter on Berlin. I feel more Berlin content in the book. What do you think?
Had to cut a few lines here and there, but he didn't actually spill the beans on Berlin. I didn't know it was Berlin he was at. So,
well, you should have talked to me, Mary. I have all the inside scoops and all of Toronto's legends here. So, speaking of Toronto's legends, even though he moved to Kingston, Ontario, but Garrett Joyce is listening right now. So hello to Garrett Joyce. And he says, be sure to ask Ben about Mike Dwyer at Runnymede and Roger Malcolm at East York. This is Garrett's words, Ben, so don't hurt me. He said, they beat him like a drum in high school. And Roger worked out maybe once a week and played soccer. So I'm trying to think. So back in high school, you were beatable, Ben. This Mike Dwyer fellow and Roger Malcolm were able to run faster than you?
Well, Roger Malcolm was a good runner. One time I wasn't really paying attention at the starts, and the guy said set and he get away from me, and I thought that I would be able to catch him down the line, but I couldn't catch him. And then one time again in the 200 meters, because I'm not a 200 meter guy. It's too far.
Well, that doesn't count.
It's too far.
That doesn't count.
So we're in the 200 meters, and we were neck to neck coming off the corner, and then about the last 40 meters, I got tied up, and he just beat me again.
So how old are you, Ben, when you realize that no one in this country is going to beat you in the 100 meter? Like when does that click in? I mean, you're beatable and sounds like you're beatable in high school, but whenabouts do you realize I am the fastest man in this country?
Well, my times go up and down. I think I started beating the seniors boys around 1981 at the World Cup in Rome, when I was, qualified to the final for World Cup trials, and I finished second behind Colin Bradford from Jamaica.
Okay.
I run 10:22 at 19 years old. It's pretty good.
Yeah, well, listen, okay. Are you kidding me? I can't drive that fast. Okay, that's pretty impressive here. All right, so we will touch back on some old stuff. And Mary, you can chime in whenever. Consider yourself co-host of this program here, because you're the expert. And if there's something you want to prompt and ask Ben about, please just stomp right over me. You're Mary Ormsby, for goodness sakes, okay? Just stomp right over me. But there's another FOTM. Now, Ben's like, well, who are these FOTMs? Well, Ben, I got news for you. You're now an FOTM. That's friend of Toronto Mike. So welcome to the club.
Welcome.
Oh, yeah, you listen, it's an esteemed club. It has Stephen Brunt in it, so that's where I'm going here. Stephen Brunt, and Mary, I love what he wrote for your book.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, and Stephen Brunt's lovely. Not only did he appear at the most recent Toronto Mike Listener Experience last December, but he will be at, and I got to shout him out because he's going to be at the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball home opener at Christie Pitts on May 12. And I'm going to be recording live, and Steven's going to be on the mic with me chatting. And just since I brought up Toronto Maple Leafs baseball, two quick things here. Ben, one is that you're invited there too, man. We would love to have you out for the home opener on May 12 at 2 p.m. at Christie Pitts. That's an official invitation for you.
May 12th.
May 12th, 2 p.m., Christie Pitts.
If I'm in the country, I definitely will come.
Okay. Listen, that's a commitment right there. Yeah, and I recorded that. But each of you, Mary, you're getting one too, of course. The history book, the amazing history book of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. That's
lovely.
another gift for you making the trek here.
Thank you.
So there's one for you there too, Ben. So Stephen Brunt, why am I bringing him up? He calls the moment, I'm going to play a little audio. He calls this moment the greatest moment in Canadian sports history. Let's listen.
And it's a fair start. And it is Raymond Kerr with a start. It is Ben Johnson with a start. Can Carl catch him? No! It's Ben Johnson! Ben Johnson does it again! Unbelievable! 9-7-9!
Absolutely incredible!
So Ben, listening to that clip, I'm sure you've heard that a few million times, but how does it feel right now? Just let me know how it feels to hear that.
I didn't know that was that fast.
But listen, you put up your arm. I got so many questions. I can't believe you're here. Okay, so you stick up your arm. Like, how fast would you have run if you just ran through the finish line? Because you let up at the end.
About 971, 972 at that time.
So you're more excited that you beat Carl Lewis, I think, than you are about getting the lowest time possible, right? Like that, I got to say, in the moment, I remember ecstatic. I was so ecstatic watching that moment that, not only Canadian Ben Johnson winning gold, but setting the world record, beating Carl Lewis. Like that was everything to me. I was 14 years old, but I definitely remember saying he let up at the end. Like I was like, he could, how fast would Ben have run if he hadn't let up at the end? So you're saying 971.
Yes, correct.
I think, too, for younger listeners, they may not understand the incredible, intense rivalry that was building over the years between Carl Lewis, tall, flashy, flamboyant, braggart of an American rival, and Ben Johnson, quiet, understated, he's just going to go about his business. And Ben kept beating Carl from about 1985, 86 on. So they were two of the greatest known athletes in the world around a time when Maradona was still out there. So these were some of their, their confreres at that time. So by the time they'd gotten to Seoul, there was a lot of bad blood, spoken and unspoken. So I might leave this up to Ben at this point, because I was a bit surprised when he went to the 100-meter final and put his arm in the air. But Ben said he had a plan, because Carl Lewis had been talking trash earlier that summer about Ben.
Right.
Now, Ben, did you have a plan going to that race, what you were going to do?
Well, my plan was, like the night before, I tell Mary in the book that, I do a lot of meditation do the race and my warm-up and my preparation mentally and physically and emotionally. So I know that it wasn't not going to be an easy task, but I was prepared and ready to run, especially when my mom's in the stands, my sisters and my father in Jamaica watching. So I walk inside the stadium on the tunnel, and I walked in. I said, everybody listen to the spikes, and I said, which one of you guys are going to come in second? And everybody look at me like they want to kill me.
That's swagger.
Can you imagine?
So I just got my gears, and the official let me see my spikes to make sure the pins and everything was intact, and I put my spikes on, and they give me my numbers and my seats, and they walk us out, and I just get ready to show the world and to be entertained, because people come to be entertained, so that's what they're going to get.
Well, you definitely entertained us, of course. Now, DJ Dream Doctor, again, I got lots of questions. I'll sprinkle them throughout, like when they're appropriate, but this is an interesting question. He goes, I would like to know if Ben, this is DJ Dream Doctor's words, if Ben hates Carl Lewis on a deep personal level.
Well, I love human beings, and when it comes to Carl, I'm not one of his best friends, because here did this guy win 4 gold medals in 1984 Olympic Games. Make a lot of money, making a lot of endorsement, be the type of guy he is. And when somebody comes on the scene afterwards and said, "This is my turn," he still wants to be the man he used to be. And I said, "No, this is not your time now. This is Ben Johnson time now."
Ben's time. Who's going to finish second? And 979, you blew him away in that race again. So we will talk. We'll talk through this here. But at this moment, you're world champion here. I want to give credit to Ghost Runner on third because he wanted to know and you've already answered the question. But if you had run that perfect race and you had not slowed up at the finish, how far you would go? And I'm just taking a note here. 971. That's on the record here. Ben Johnson would have ran 971. Now, my question for you, Ben. This is today. We have come a long way with regards not only to the track, but the technology and the shoes and nutrition and training and stuff. So this is my question for you. If you're in your prime today, your prime, Ben, I give you a time machine, you're in your prime. With today's technology, today's shoes, today's training, today what we know about nutrition, etc., how fast could you run today?
Well, back then when I slowed down and I met Charlie underneath the tunnel and Charlie go, you smile and go, "Why'd you slow down?" You know, I say, "I just want to win the gold medal and turn around, win the gold medal by sending a work at the same time." And I said, "Well, hopefully next time when I get the chances, I'm going to go full throttle." And they say, "Well, okay." Then I do believe back in my days, the track wasn't as great as it was, back then. And the track started changing since around 1996.
Right.
If you get even a tennis ball and put it on the track, it can roll down. So they use the track as a downhill, slightly downhill, but a naked eye won't pick it up because everybody is chit-chatting, smiling, and on the phone and blah, blah.
Right.
But athletes like ourselves, we can see what the changes are on the track. The tighter the rubber is, the faster the track is. I was programmed in my head to run 9:48.
9:48.
And I also run faster in practice. What I run in Seoul, I run faster in practice.
Okay, so today, like if you're you in your prime, but with today's track, today's shoes, today's everything else, you'd run under 9.5.
9.5, exactly. 9.4, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because you have to understand that every Olympic Games, the technology get better and better and better and better.
Right. That's why I always wonder, like, we take 1988 Ben and we run him today. What would happen? Okay, 9:48 or whatever. That's amazing. Mary, where exactly were you when the race happened and Ben ran 9:79? Where were you?
I was in Seoul's Olympic Stadium in the press area beyond the finish line, and I saw a pretty good race. 4 guys ran under 10 seconds that day.
Wow.
It was a race for the ages.
So it's a race for the ages, but we're still talking about it today. So we're gonna dive into this. Okay. But would you mind, Ben, sharing with us a little bit about like how you met Charlie Francis and his role in your athletic career?
My brother was in Discover Optimist Track Club before I do, and I was in going Youngdale Secondary School, and I was competing for my school with different schools in North York at Birchmount Stadium, and we participate in all events, and I came up with 4 ribbons, just ribbons, not trophies, ribbons back in those days.
Right.
So he was doing his homework, and I put the ribbons on the table, and he goes, "What's those?" I said, "Ribbons." Then he goes, "Oh, they're all first place." I said, "Yeah." Then he said, "How fast did I run?" I said, "I run 11.5 at the time. I was only 98 pounds. Skinny kid."
Right.
So he said to me that if I want to come out to his track club, and I said, "Wow, yeah, I'd love to. Young kid like that want to go to a track club. It's a big thing." So
Sure.
I decided, yeah, and then he bring me out, and Charlie just finished his career, and he was in the stands, like the bleachers, talking, and he's talking to me, and I was looking at his face, I was looking on his legs, how big his calf and leg was, and I said, so he said to me, "I heard that you're pretty fast and you want to do track." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, go and warm up with the rest of the guys," and sort of warm up. And I was one of the youngest one in the club, so you have to imagine how much harder I have to run to keep up with those guys.
Sure.
And then after maybe the first week, I quit. I said, "Man, that's too hard." So I quit for almost like 6 weeks and playing soccer with my friends in the park, having a good time. So my brother would come home and push me around and hit me and say, "Charlie, see how good things in you that you can run fast, and you disappoint me," and stuff like that. And And I said, I don't want to run anymore. So I said, Mom, Eddie's hitting me. And, so I started crying to my mother. My mother said to Eddie, leave him alone. He doesn't want to run track. We don't want to leave him alone. And then after a few weeks later, I feel sorry for him. Like I can see the sadness on his face. And I said, Eddie, okay, I want to come back. And then we go back to Charlie, and Charlie said, okay, since you can't do this kind of workout, we're going to tailor-made a workout for you that you feel comfortable with. So they write on the workout on a piece of paper and give it to me, and I put it in my pocket, and I started to do workout for each sets. And he came back, and then I said, I'm finished. He goes, how you like that? He said, I said, I like it's nice. So all my other teammates was running like 500 and 600, and I couldn't do that stuff. It was killing me.
But isn't that extraordinary about Charlie Francis, though? This is in the 70s.
Yeah.
And when normally you just did what you were told.
Right.
Charlie sees a young athlete, tailors something to him so he gets confidence and maybe he'll stick around. So, I mean, that is part of the magic of Charlie.
And then in an alternate universe where he doesn't do that, or, maybe Ben, you don't come back. There's no 979 in Seoul. Like it's just wild to think about, like a sliding doors idea of what kind of has to break right for this all to unfold here. But Charlie clearly, Charlie saw, I'm guessing, maybe you'll speak to this, Ben, but Charlie saw potential, like a future champion, that with the right mentoring and training, that you could potentially be fastest man in the world.
Well, yes, we trained over the years, and sometimes we go to Charlie's house for do some muscle stim, and then his father's talking with Charlie inside the other room, and we can hear what's going on. And his father go, well, you're training all these black guys, you spend a lot of time doing this. And Charlie said, well, these guys, they're hungry, they're punctual, they're hungry, they want to run track, and they're strong and they're fit, and it's okay. Well, if they think that this is what you want to do, that's fine, So I laugh, and sometimes I walk out there walking normal, and come back walking like Sanford and Son with my legs all sore and everything.
I can hear the theme song in my head right now. Are you kidding me? Now, people who don't know, Charlie, he's also Olympian. He was in the 72 Olympics, and I learned that in Mary Ormsby's book here. But we'll get back to Charlie Francis later. Won't be too long here. But of course, so maybe a little bit about, if you don't mind, 983. So before we had 979, we had 983, and that was in Rome. Was that 87?
87, yeah.
Okay, so when you ran 983 and you beat Carl Lewis in the World Championship in Rome, and then you set the world record of 983, everything's lining up for the Seoul, right, for the matchup. Like this is the period in your career when you're routinely beating Carl Lewis, right?
Yeah, well, to me, it's always nice beating Americans. So, they think that they are the best in the world and the best there is, and nobody else can beat them. And I proved them wrong, because I know that when I was growing up in running track and field in the early 80s, there's some great American sprinters, and I just be patient and just wait for my turn to come. And when it comes, it was different. So it's always. It's a challenge, because the Americans, they have about 4,000 or 5,000 athletes can run internationally good all the time. So you always have a new guy coming up every year.
Deep, yeah.
So I said, bring them on. In my time, I said, bring them on. If no one comes up, then you get killed.
Yeah, mow them down. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Okay, so we're gonna get back to we got to get back to Seoul here, but I got a question, because again, back to Mark Zwolinski on Friday. He lifts, man. This guy, like, you can clearly see, Ben, I don't lift. Like, I know you're being very kind. You could have opened it with, Mike, hello, nice to meet you. You clearly don't lift. But Zwolinski lifts, and he was talking about what an inspiration you were. He would see you at York, and he would talk about your upper body and how inspiring that was for him when he started his regiment and he started bodybuilding. And I'm curious, because, we've seen many a great sprinter, but we've never seen a sprinter with as strong an upper body as you've been. Like, I can't think of one. How did that help you, having such a bulky upper body and being so strong?
Well, it will help you. The stronger you move your arms and faster you move your arms, the faster you're going to run. I used to bench over 395, 400 pounds. So you have to have a string upper body. So when the guys is set and hold you for about 2.5 seconds, you have that power in your shoulders can hold you in that position, so you can really snap that left hand how quickly as possible and then get off the blocks and just run like hell.
And getting out of the blocks was your specialty. I mean, this was always the great Ben. You were always like ahead before the other guys all had to play catch up, right? You had this a bit. So where does that come from? Is that just innate? Like you just had a reaction time that
it's
was
it's just where my body mechanism is made up. I got fats, right? Twitch muscles can move like lightning flash.
But how often do you think in your career did you get accused of a false start when it was untrue? It was just simply your reaction time was that quick.
A lot of times, yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Like they have the Ben Johnson rule. It's like
Ben Johnson rule, yeah. There's a set back the timer back to a lot lower than what it was.
And back then, you had two false starts before being disqualified, right? Because today it's one, right? Like today, you did the one false start, you're out.
Gone, yeah.
Yeah. It happened in Seoul too, eh, Ben?
Yes,
That's a good story. You should tell them about.
Okay,
that.
tell me that story. This is in a heat?
In the semifinal,
Semi.
Oh,
in the semifinal,
Semi.
the semifinal was faster than the final. And that's why I get a false start, because I get off the block so fast and so hard, so quickly. I beat the censor.
I remember this, and in hindsight now, thankfully you got the two. Like you got that second one. So how does that change yours in the semi when you get caught for you get called for the false start? Firstly, the question I have for you, Ben, is did you false start?
No, it was perfect start. I just have to cut back the power of the second start to make sure I didn't false start. So
It's like in tennis, right? You get you got to take something off the second serve so you don't double fault.
Yes.
Of course. Now, what's that about? Like, how do they call the false start on you in the semi when you didn't false start? Like,
if you move 1,010th of a second, they said no human being can react that fast. It's impossible. I proved them wrong. I did it.
But the human starter was the one who shot the pistol, right?
That's right.
And said he'd move.
so like a human eye, like.
But it was backed up though with an electronic sensor in the pads, which showed later on, or we assumed it did, because Richard Pound, who was an IOC member, went down and raised a bit of a stink in the athletics tent about Ben's false start. He didn't think it was a false start, and Richard Pound demanded to see the electronic backup for them to prove that he'd false started. And the officials sort of hemmed and hawed and said, yes, well, we'll go get that. And they came back and said, well, didn't really show it to him. I said, but sometimes mistakes happen. And Richard Pound said, make sure it doesn't happen again.
So Richard Pound, Mary, tell us the role of Richard Pound, Dick Pound, Richard Pound, at these Olympics in '88. Is he like the advocate for the Canadian athlete? Like, what is his role there?
Richard Pound was an IOC vice president, and his role at the time, and Richard Pound is from Montreal, and he's a former Olympic swimmer himself. But his role at the time for the IOC was a very important one, because he was the tough-nosed negotiator who was in charge of getting money, revenue from marketing, television, executives, all that stuff. So a lot of the revenue back in those days came into the IOC through the work of Richard Pound. Very important guy, young guy, smart guy, and he was rising up the ranks. So when he was in the stands, he was just watching as a spectator, and decided to come down and throw his weight around. So here's where you can see IOC members can have some, intimidation, power, because his point was, this better not happen in the final, because if Ben has to take off even the tiniest bit, if he's called for a false start, I'm going to tell the world, and don't do it to him in the final. Make sure he gets a clean start. So, he ran some interference for Ben without Ben knowing.
When did you learn about this, Ben?
Just now.
Wait, that's an interesting point, Mary. This is an interesting point. I had a long chat with, you were stuck on the, not your fault, on the Gardner Expressway. I feel sorry for anyone who has to visit here taking the
I
Gardner.
apologize again.
It's not your fault.
Sorry,
I'm blaming
everybody.
city planners. What's going on here? But Ben and I had a long time to chat, and Ben, it's important to point out that this book that Mary's written is available now, and people should read, called World's Fastest Man, The Incredible Life of Ben Johnson. Ben, you have not read this book.
I read the first chapter, but
The first chapter.
yeah.
He takes his time.
But I lived a life.
You lived it.
But I will definitely read it. Yes. So.
Okay, because you read the first chapter. There's like 20 chapters in this thing here. So
He's savoring every word.
So you might learn things in this conversation. Like literally, you might learn things about your life.
So that's why I thought to read it. Yeah.
So Richard Brown did have your back. I just come setting the table because for those who don't know, I don't know who is anyone listening who doesn't know this. The story in Seoul is about to turn a little sour. Okay, so it's trigger warning here. It's not. He's not Ben. You're not pulling out the gold medal to show me. So this is all coming out here very, very shortly here. Where do I go from here? Mary, you can help me here. But how do you find out, Ben, that you tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug in Seoul, Korea? Like, how did you find out?
Well, it was early Sunday morning, about 7:30. I was in my room. Knock came on the door and opened the door and tried to look stunned like somebody that died or something, And I said, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "You test positive." I said, "No way." He said, "Yes." Then me and him go over to my mom's room and I said, "Mom, I test positive." And my mom put his hand over her mouth and start crying. And I sit down on the couch and I put my hands on my face and hold my head down and say that they finally got me. And I mentioned this several times over the years, but people didn't ever understand what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is my mom said this even before it happened, but I never really put it out in the media. But for the first time in 36 years, a lot of people have to understand this. My mom is a born-again Christian, and she get a vision from the Lord saying that all that they took from me, it's going to come back to me. But you have to go through the process, go with God. I'm not going to be alive to see it. But again, my mom say, "Son, the only way they can beat you is in this doping room. That's the only way, no other way." And when she told me that, I started getting scared because I know exactly what that means. Which means, yes, if I do get caught, I'll be ready for that. But my fear was my life is in danger because people can poison me and people can do a lot of kinds of things to get me out or get me by. So that was my main concern running all these years on the top of the world. Not to eat from people and not to eat where I'm not supposed to eat or new friends that I came in. And just one time, that last second, I put my guards down for that moment and that was it.
Okay, can you be more specific? Like, how did you put your arms down for a moment?
Well, I opened myself up to people to come close to me, so to speak. And that moment, that was it.
Who are these people?
Well, the person that the mystery man was in the doping movement was Andre Jackson, one of Carl Lewis' friend. Okay,
the mystery man. Now, there's a great detail about this in your book, Mary, and I read with great interest. So after you win gold medal 979, is it like immediately after the race that you're put in, like, tell me how this goes down. You go into a room and they do a test? Like when was the drug test after the gold? Like
after the gold medal, before the gold medal ceremony, they put me into this room for about 2.5 hours. I started drinking about 8 to 9 beers and I started getting buzzed, started getting drunk. So Valamara was working on my Achilles because my Achilles were all flares up really bad. And this guy was sitting down on the ground next to a small little fridge. My can of beer was open.
So the guy you're talking about, that's Andre Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. So Andre Jackson is in the room with you when you're doing your testing there, but is he allowed in the room?
He's not allowed in the room. I look on his credential and he say American, and I said that you're in the wrong room. Your teammates is on the other side. You shouldn't be here. Oh, I came here just to congratulate you on your run.
Okay, and there's no one there. Like, there's no Canadian representative. Like, you know how you watch a crime show or whatever, and they're like, I'd like to speak to a lawyer. And then Diana
Clement was there, but she doesn't come into the room in and out because she have to do other things outside for the other athletes. And
so Andre Jackson, you alluded to this a moment ago, but just to and this is in the book, but Mary, you can speak to this too. But Andre Jackson is part of the Carl Lewis camp. Like, is he's part of the Carl Lewis?
He's a friend of Carl Lewis, and he's part of that entourage, and he's staying in Seoul at that time in the same home, excuse me, that the Carl Lewis entourage is staying in. They'd rented a home or a big condo or something in Seoul away from the village. So they were known to each other. And Andre did have a credential on, but it was, I don't know how he got it. Joe Douglas, Carl's manager, said many years later on that they were able to put him in there, got him in there to make sure Ben wasn't doing anything funny.
Well, this is where I'm going. Like, what's he doing there?
Well, according to Joe Douglas, and he said this in that documentary, 979, they kind of got him in there to keep an eye on Ben to make sure he wasn't doing anything funny, to mask a drug test or anything else, and to use his camera, which he had with him too. But when I spoke to Andre, excuse me, he said the credential was to accompany Joe DeLoach, who's another American, but that was for a 200-meter race. That was
different race.
4 days in the future.
And Ben, what do you think Andre Jackson did in that room? Like, I guess I'm trying to find out specifically, what do you believe he did to influence this drug test?
After I was in so great pain working on my Achilles, Valamara was focused on my Achilles, and my head was bowed down in pain. And 9
beers in.
Yeah.
don't bury the lead here.
He was a pretty happy guy.
And then that's where I started to slip these pills in my drinks, and I start to drink it, another, and then after 2.5 hours, after I speak to the Prime Minister, and I came back down, and I went to present my urine after 2.5 hours later.
You believe he put the pills in your
yes,
beer.
of course.
Okay.
So you didn't see him do it, but he
No.
Okay. So now this is where the book does a good job breaking it down, because this is important, and we all know I want to hear it from you, Ben, though. But you had been on, Charlie Francis had you on a program for several years, right, where you were taking illegal performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were caught, but here, and I'm gonna hope I pronounce this right. Okay. So you were caught with stanozolol.
How
am I doing there? That's a tough one for me. I can't even say brewery.
Stanozolol, but it's just anabolic steroid. That was the one they identified in his urine.
And let me ask you, Ben, you didn't take that, right? You were taking illegal. So this is where the story gets murky for me, because you're guilty of taking illegal, like banned substances. We'll call it banned substances, but not the one they caught you taking. So you believe that Andre Jackson spiked your drinks with this particular one. So even though you're guilty, you were set up to be caught,
so to speak. Yes, yeah, and the world, the public, and the world has to know this. For the first time again, I get caught not because I was taking drugs. I get caught because I switch Adidas to Diadora. That's the reason why. That's the reason why everything went sour for Ben Johnson. I should have stuck to Adidas.
So Ben thinks there's more skullduggery involved, and I'll just jump in a little bit here,
of course.
And I don't want to get ahead of your questions, Mike. But
no, you're the co-host of this program, Ormsby. Please.
What we find out much later on is that, unbeknownst to the members of Charlie Francis' sprint group, the doctor, Jamie Astafan, was giving them from time to time stanozolol without their knowledge. So they didn't know they were using it, and it would have been a complete shock to Charlie and Ben and everybody else, because they had no idea. And this comes out later at the Dublin Inquiry.
Oh, so Jamie Astafan sounds like he's doing you dirty here, possibly.
Yeah,
allegedly.
Very dirty. Yeah.
So do you trust? So Charlie Francis is your coach, and you trust him.
Yeah, I trust Charlie. Yeah,
of course. But you're both reliant on this Dr. Jamie Astafan, and he may have been giving you substances that you didn't know you were taking.
Because Jamie comes in to make sure that we doesn't overdo it. Mm-hmm. Like, down the road we have health problems or anything like that.
Sure.
We just want to make sure that everything's mannered properly, and whatever your body doesn't need, you just pee it out, So,
sure.
So we and again, we train very hard. We trained from since I came to Canada in 1976 and started running track and field 1977. 12 years of training, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, people doesn't see the hard training that you do. All they see is the end result on TV. But the pain and suffering and fatigue and hurt and disappointment, I just keep going because all I'm doing is for my mother. And all the suffering and painful that I endured through my 12 years to be the best I can be, everything was for my mom. So pain becomes my best friend.
Okay, so got so many places I want to go here, but you're caught doping. You believe you were set up. I know that this skullduggery, that's a term I'm going to start using, skullduggery. I quite like it here. Now, I do have to just follow up a little bit on this because that, so you do think maybe that possibly, and I'm just not trying to speak for you, Ben, you speak for yourself, but maybe Andre Jackson is spiking this drink to ensure you're caught because you're the only person in that 100-meter final in Seoul who was caught doping, right?
Correct, yes.
So you believe possibly that Andre Jackson was spiking this drink to ensure you were caught because you're guilty, but you know how to game the system. This is kind of a detail I want to explore here. So everyone, Ben, do you think everyone in that 100-meter final in Seoul was doping?
Not because somebody profile doesn't change and get big doesn't mean that they're clean. There's certain sprinters in the final look skinny, but you can tell by the muscles. There's much more water around the muscles or whatever. You get nice and lean. And there's other sprinters you can see the muscles. But I've been lifting weights since 1980. I started lifting lots of weights. Even though in my early beginning I lift a lot of weights, but as time goes by, I started to lift more weights because that was my secret. Because I was very weak, but I needed to get stronger to run faster, to get more endurance. And that's where the weight training comes in. And lots of plyometric jumps. And then Charlie, as brilliant as he is, knows his body very well. The right training program for Ben Johnson,
right,
tailor-made. That make it the difference.
And part of this program is knowing how to pass these drug tests, because you know you're going to get tested in Seoul when you run your 979. And essentially, as I read in the book, Mary, like, you know when to stop taking the drugs so that you don't trigger any alarms in Seoul, right?
Right. That's
like,
called,
you know how to game the system.
That's called the clearance time. Okay. And I will just say the Canadians weren't alone in following this sort of training regime where they were maybe using substances during training and also having clearance times going into major races, including the Olympic Games.
I find it almost as a philosophical question. It's a very interesting, thought-provoking... Go ahead, Ben.
You have to understand this, that the system made the rules and they break the rules. And if you break the rules, you're going to get punished. But only them alone can break the rules. They make it, but they don't follow their own rules. And that's a joke.
The philosophical question here is that because you don't deny that you were taking the banned substances for several years leading up to the Olympics in Seoul, Korea. So there's no denial there. But at the same time, it sounds like, and as I read this book from Mary Ormsby, it sounds like you were done dirty in Seoul. Like, so it's like, can you be done dirty when you are guilty of taking the banned substances? Like, this is like a very interesting conversation.
Can you be cheated by the system?
Because there's no denying that, yes, you're guilty of taking banned substances, breaking the rules, basically. And even, but you're the only person, and is this what I read in your book, that you're the only one at the whole Olympics that was the only athletic, only track athlete at the entire Seoul Olympics who was caught and disqualified?
Yes, the only track and field athletes at the Seoul Olympics to fail a drug test was Ben Johnson.
And there's about 6 or 7 people who failed drug tests in Seoul.
And weren't announced.
Banned.
Is that what you meant?
And weren't announced.
But overall, there was probably about 10 or so. There were like a couple of weightlifters and
the weightlifters and those guys.
Those sorts of guys. But the ones you would think. But it sort of defies. You can't have it both ways as a testing body. That you've got the state of the art equipment, the best software to detect steroids and other things. There's a very long list of performance enhancing drugs. The best scientists around, and also the element of surprise, because going into Seoul, a lot of the anti-doping scientists felt that track and field athletes and others didn't know how well they could detect stanozolol, right? So if all this is happening and you've got the element of surprise and you've got the best guys ever in state-of-the-art lab, you only get one person in track and field. That's one of those things that just sort of doesn't compute.
Right.
To me, just as
It smells.
a fact. What is a fact? It's like, how come nobody else?
Well, I'm not going to take the blame for everybody else wrongdoing, and I'm only one. So I have the right to defend myself, and I will.
Of course.
And I'm going to. And until this matter is closed, and that's it.
So, Ben, you're suggesting that you were set up to fail the drug test in Seoul.
Correct.
And the comment, the skullduggery there, just because I need to follow up that one just for a moment here. Okay. You believe it was because you had slighted Adidas by changing from Adidas to Diadora? What is it?
Diadora.
Yeah.
You have to understand how these shoes company works. There is no way people that wear all these different type of shoes could test positive, because they give a lot of money to the World Athletics or IWF at the time, sponsorship money. So they want to make sure that they're protected. So when the consumers or the public go and buy Puma or Nike or Adidas, that's where they make the money, because everybody wants to wear Adidas, because guys when they go Olympic Games in Olympic Games, gold medal in these gears. So that's what it's all about. So they could not allow of a small shoes company from Italy becomes the number one shoes company in the world. Can't happen.
Okay, and this is pure speculation, right? Like you don't actually, you just, that's a suspicion you have.
It's not a suspicion. This is facts.
Okay.
It's
this is facts.
Ben's theory.
Ben's theory, of course. Now, isn't it even more likely? A question I wanted to ask is, if Ben, you're Canadian. If you were,
okay,
yeah,
I go back.
Okay.
Since you don't believe me,
No, not that I don't believe you. It's just
do your research. Go back to the 1992 Olympic Games in Tokyo, when some of those American athletes get hurt all of a sudden. All of a sudden, everybody's getting hurt.
The Barcelona, you mean, or
No.
the 1991 World
1991
Championships?
World
Championship.
Yep.
Everybody was getting hurt in that race, because they know that somebody is going to test positive, because the system is accurate. And then they come back in 1996 and set a record, make up back from all the years of disappointment, then make it back up in 1996 Olympic Games, when the track service gets better and faster.
And just to be clear, Ben, I actually am not sitting here thinking that I don't believe you. Not at all, actually. Like, I do believe you were a scapegoat in Seoul, and I believe you were not given proper due diligence and justice here. Where I can't go with you, because there's no evidence at all, is like the speculation that it had anything to do with a shoe contract. Like, that to me is like, that's a Ben theory, but that's not a fact. Or Mary would have had the first chapter would have been full of the facts, but it's almost, I'm going to just bring it back to the fact that you're running for Canada, you're Canadian, and Carl Lewis, of course, is American. And my big question for you is, if you were running for the United States of America, would you have been caught doping in Seoul?
Never happened. Never will. Not in a lifetime.
So why is that? Like, I feel like exploring
because America protect the athletes. America put money into the track and field budget, like in America, like in TAC. They put in like $500 and $600 million into the budget to run the sports. They give a lot of money to the World Athletics or the IWF or the IRC for sponsorship money. So none of the athletes really can test positive.
And Mary, I read in your book that Carl Lewis failed 3 tests during the American Olympics trials.
Well, failed is now a bit of a loaded word, because he tested positive for stimulants at the U.S. Olympic trials. And that was kept quiet because U.S. Olympic officials, upon talking to him, decided that it was inadvertent doping, and he didn't mean to do it, and he got it through some sort of, on a protein pack or whatever he was taking. Otherwise, he could have been suspended for about 3 months, and that would have kept him out of the Olympic Games. And people didn't know about that until the whistleblower, released a lot of documents about athletes, including Carl Lewis, but other athletes as well, in 2003.
In your career before Seoul, Ben, approximately, like how many times did you take a drug test throughout your athletics career before Seoul Korea Olympics?
Too much.
And you passed every single one of them.
Yeah.
And that's primarily because you're on the program, you're taking the system here, but it's well known how to what is avoidance? What is the term?
Clearance.
Clearance. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Like you understand how far before the event you need to stop taking the steroids in order to test negative.
People in general doesn't understand. Steroids doesn't make you run fast. It just helps to make your recovery so you can train harder.
Right.
I mean, if you don't have the genetics and the a good coach and right frame of mind and the
No, I can't start taking steroids and run 979.
So people have to understand that if you're in great shape and excellent shape, and you can get some good results.
It's not a race day drug, if that's what
No.
you're also asking. It's not like
Right.
if you want to use cocaine or something to get out of the blocks faster. You wouldn't do that you wouldn't use this stuff anywhere near race day.
Dale wrote in when he heard you were coming on, Ben. And again, I'm glad you're here, man. You didn't know this would be tougher than the Dublin inquiry, but this is, But at least you get lasagna.
Just bring back in.
Did Dublin give you lasagna?
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, but did Dublin didn't give you the...
No, didn't give me nothing.
Okay, I just want to point that out because I actually have more
incriminate
gifts
me.
for you later. Yeah. I want to point that out. You're getting lasagna at least. Okay, but Dale wrote in, this is what Dale wrote. He won the race legitimately as everyone was juiced. How Carl Lewis escaped is beyond me. Better science, I guess. This is Dale. But Mary, I'm going to ask you now because, we've heard from Ben and some theories he has. Do you believe, Mary, that Ben was done dirty in Seoul?
I don't know. I couldn't prove that at all. There were just a couple of things that stuck in my mind about obviously him being the only one. We've already talked about that. The other thing that's interesting to me is that we learned at the time, and not much was made of it really, but the metabolite reading in Ben's urine, and metabolites are the chemical traces of the anabolic steroid after it breaks down in your system, so it's like the fingerprint. Apparently, it was a relatively huge amount in his urine sample. And if he'd been following the clearance time, which he had been, and I will say Jamie Astafan, the doctor, was good about that with these guys. He kept an eye on them. It should have been a very tiny amount. So I've always wondered, and other people have wondered too, about why was there so much in his urine?
Right.
That I don't have an answer to. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of curious things going on here.
There are curious things. So I stop short of a lot of places that Ben will go to. I just don't go there. But I'm throwing it out there for people to have a look, and you make up your own decision.
I go there because I'm not afraid.
Okay, so I'm a bit of a chicken.
No, I think it's more like Mary's got a journalistic standards that you need to uphold. Where Ben, you could be more like impulsive and passionate about your beliefs
And have an
like,
opinion.
Yeah, you can have an opinion. You're not a
And also, he's
long-time
not
Toronto Star journalist.
He's not. Ben,
are you?
I have learned Ben's not afraid of a lot of things. He's a pretty bold guy.
No, and that's what makes for an interesting conversation too, because Ben, you could come on and tout some PR statements or whatever and toe some line, but I really feel like you're here to tell it like you believe it to be, which I appreciate.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Now, okay, so the question that came in from Sonic More Music was a Toronto Sun headline. Mary, you were at the Sun before the Star. When did you join the Star?
1985. I was at the Sun from 81 to 85.
Okay, so the headline was, and Sonic More Music is repeating this, and I'm going to frame it differently by just saying, okay, so you admit you were on a program with Charlie Francis. You were on this program taking banned substances and avoiding testing positive until Seoul, but we've discussed that this Andre Jackson, which I might revisit it in a moment, but Sonic More Music says, why Ben? Why? Like, and my question for you, Ben, on that note is like why did you agree to be on a program taking substances that are banned from the sport?
Well, I would just believe that is a level playing field to me, that everybody else I know, my competitor was using performance-enhancing drugs.
Right.
I see it back in the early 80s with the East Germans and other American runners and stuff like that. And because I test positive because I do it better than them or in faster than them, so they don't like that. So they have to keep me out. But you have to understand this, that Charlie's like a father to me.
Yes.
And I will defend Charlie until the day I die.
So Charlie was just leveling the field.
Charlie didn't do anything wrong.
Because if everybody in that 100-meter final, so we don't have any evidence of this, but if they are all doping, then if you're not doping, you're not there.
Yeah, you know, we have good and bad people everywhere. You know, I remember when I was about 7 years old, before my mom came to Canada, my mom just gave me a money with some measurement on a piece of paper and go and see this lady and buy some material. So I ran up the streets. And the people inside the store said, "Yeah, this young man is coming here to see you, and I've got the material. And we run back." And then years later, my mom sit down and said to me, "Remember that lady that I gave you the money to see all the time to buy material?" Mm-hmm. I said, "Yeah, that white lady." She said, "Yeah." She said that she's your family, and I said, "No." And that's all almost shed tears because I didn't get to know her as a young boy, you know, growing up in Jamaica. And, you know, mostly black folks in Jamaica, we have a trace of white because of the slavery and stuff like that. But the reason why I'm saying this, not because what happened to us in slavery, not mean that everybody else is white is bad. Mm-hmm. And she was a good person because she was a family to me and I didn't have a chance to meet her. But what I'm saying is Charlie didn't do anything wrong. Charlie, I have family as white as Charlie, as white as you in my family. I don't say that they're bad people because I do something bad and people against me. But this is what needs to be addressed and this is what people has to be knowing. That there's three persons I miss so much is my mother, my father, and Charlie. Charlie meant a lot to me. Charlie was like a father figure for me here in Toronto and as a young boy. And Charlie will give you anything on his back. He will give you the last money, the last shirt on his back, he will give to you. I remember one time I was training at Lawrence Park and it was so cold. It was like minus 15. And back then, Charlie had this Aston Martin. And we were training on the side, me and my brother and some of the sprinters. And it was so cold that I started crying. And I said, "Charlie, I can't. He goes, go in my car and warm up for a while. Don't stay too long. Go in the car." So I turned the car on. I started warming up. I didn't want to come back outside. He came over and go, "Okay, let's go." So I have to get in the car. So this type of person he is, you know, you have to get the job done. You know,
it sounds like a father figure, right? Like it sounds like, and I know a very poignant part of the book is where we hear when Charlie Francis passes away, how that affected you, Ben. And I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I it's like part of me died, and it meant a lot to me, and he guided me, you know, to my great career, and I can say that as a young boy growing up and did the thing I did and become out the best 100 meter of all time. I'm very proud of myself, and that's it.
So no regrets. Like if you could do it again, and I'm going to read a question from Craig M because it ties into this question I have about no regrets, which is he writes, "Mike, I'd love you to ask Ben how he thinks his life would have been different if everything had stayed the same except was above board. What would his legacy have been, and does he ever think about that? Still one of the greatest accomplishments in Canadian sports history."
Well, it's going to be different because that's the way my life was written out. That's my lifeline was. Yes, I did what I have to do to win, and I did it because that was the right thing to do at the time. I would do it all over again for mommy, for my mother. That's my destiny. That's my destiny. That's it. I can't change it.
Mary, thinking about, reading your book, and I've been thinking a lot about what happened with Ben in Seoul and whether he was treated unfairly. Did he get proper justice? I'm like now we're talking in 2024. Like, how can we fix this? Like, how can we repair this damage done to Ben? And for the people who say, why would we bother? Ben admits he was on a steroid program for years. Like he was, guilty. But at the same time, a lot of fishy, stinky activity going on, swirling around this. That doesn't seem fair that he was caught there. What do you say? Like how do we fix this?
Well, even the words we use sometimes, guilty. I mean, the athletes who test positive do not commit crimes.
Right.
Right? So Ben has committed no crime.
Right.
The linchpin of this book is quite separate from the notion that athletes cheat or have broken the rules, including Ben. What we're looking at is before that, at the critical moment at Ben's hearing, was he denied or deprived of due process when the Canadians were trying to make an appeal to hold on to his medal? And it was pivotal on this. And the research that we've done for this book and at the start grew from this. It's all explained in the book, but there were things that were, there were deficiencies on both sides, with the Canadian team trying to defend him. They weren't looking at certain evidence. They didn't challenge other evidence that was dropped on them. They didn't challenge the lack of disclosure of this evidence they were ambushed, and that's my word, by the IOC Medical Commission. And no one challenged the deep conflicts of interest with the IOC Medical Commission, because they formed not only the testing team in Seoul, because they're all smart and they know how to do all this stuff,
Right.
but they were also prosecutors sitting in judgment, and they were also the ones who recommended whether he would be disqualified from Seoul or not. So they are also judge and jury. No way, is that group of people going to say, yeah, the stuff we did in the lab was all wrong. You got us.
Right.
So all these things, and there's more to it than that, but that's the basis of the book. Can a cheater be cheated by the system?
This is the great question.
But the other part of that is protecting an athlete's right to due process is not the same thing as endorsing that athlete's behavior. Two separate discussions, and you've dwelled a lot on the performance enhancing drugs Ben and others were taking.
Right.
This other thing about due process is really critically important, and then hopefully if there's a way for restorative justice or review or re-examination, particularly in what we're learning today, 36 years later, this stuff is still happening. There's mercy for some and no mercy for others.
This is why you're the writer, Mary. That was very well put. And again, honestly, like I'm reading this book and I was like, I can't believe that, and this is not fair there. And it really does make you revisit the whole thing. It's not as simple as saying, oh, Ben got caught cheating. They took away his gold medal. They took away his world record. Fascinating. Okay, now, interesting question came in. So, again, we're skipping a little time here, but I want to get to this question. I'm afraid I'll run out of time. But Gare Joyce, and there's a lot of technical stuff here, so I'm going to burn through this, Ben, okay? Not 979, okay, but I'll do my best here. He goes, I guess if I was going to boil down the Ben Johnson stuff to ask Mary, it would be his second suspension was really broken, given that he didn't test positive for an illegal prohibited substance, but rather for a TE ratio of 1 to 10.3, an out-of-bounds ratio of 2 naturally occurring substances. 1 to 1 is supposedly normal. For anything under 6 to 1 was deemed not suspect. No follow-up. 6 to 9.9. I know this is all in the weeds here, but I'm going to get through this. Was deemed suspect, and greater than 10 to 1 was suspension worthy. Ben was barely over, but the thing is, past use could have accounted for volatile results, and ditto for sex and alcohol and even eating beef. It's all bad science. No one had any idea what the fuck testosterone did. Dr. Manfred Donike was the brains of the IOC drug testing ops. None of it was subject to peer review or such. If his Seoul test was dubious, was his second one even worse? There's the question.
Wow.
I don't even know what I said before that, Mary, but you...
Gare Joyce is incredible, and he's written about this second test. So if I can just sort of make it into a small mountain. Ben had a race in Hamilton first. Hamilton passes that test. A couple of days later, has a test in Montreal, runs a race in Montreal and has a test. And this is the one that's wonky. He finds out later on. Excuse me. And then there's a random test, just a couple of days later in Toronto, and he passes that one too. So this test in the middle of 3 in a very short period of time, his testosterone ratio was too high. Let's just say that, and suspicious, and they jump on this. And what flows from that is that Ben decides to retire because everybody jumps all over him again, and the word, it's all leaked out, and he can't face it. And Ben can maybe talk about this later on. It's going to cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to fight this. He goes away. 6 years later, jumping ahead, he ends up in front of an arbitrator who looks at this case. And part of the arbitration hearing is, that reading is going to stand. But what they found in that test, because Ben was provisionally reinstated because he'd been banned for life, based on a couple of things, including Athletics Canada mistakenly told Ben he had to launch an appeal when Ben was actually able to have a hearing first. You have your hearing, and if you don't like that result, then you can appeal. So he got it backwards, and Athletics Canada, mistakenly gave him the wrong information, and he retired because of it. Also, there were some questions about the lab work. I'll just put it that way. It's just the easiest way to say it. It's not that it was wrong, but there were questions about how some of the calculations were done, and had he had a hearing, as was his right, it could have been addressed in the hearing. That's kind of it. But again, you're looking at process, procedure, and, but that all goes away because, people have dismissed Ben at this point, open and shut case. He's getting older too. But at that point, I'm not sure he really wanted to run. He can answer this, but I think he wanted to get into coaching. But a lifetime ban meant not a chance. You can't even coach in Canada anyway.
Ben, let's hear from you. Gare Joyce thinks that was even dirtier.
At the time when I claimed that I test positive, I have my lawyer, and I went to Tennessee to see Dr. David Black. He's one of the best toxicologists in North America, and we look into it. And I gave him the form and on the reading and said, "This thing is impossible. It can't happen. Just can't happen." And they know that they did a mistake. But anyway, the IRC did have a hearing in Paris at the time, and my lawyer and Dr. Black was going to go on my behalf, and they get a letter saying that we don't want you guys here. We have to make up our mind about Ben Johnson. We had the judge and jury, and that's it. And that was it.
That was in 93.
1993.
Yeah. So that didn't help your case much.
Case at all? No.
Well, fascinating conversation. Again, fascinating book. And Ben, loving this so much, but I'm not quite done with you yet.
So as long as I was in track and field, my name wasn't going to get tarnished because they didn't want me in the track and field. Period. They want me out.
And why do they want you out? Is it simply because you've been labeled a cheater?
No, because they know that over the years what they did have been critiquing myself and all the wrongdoing that they did over the years, and hush things up and get money, prize money or things like that. It's just not fair.
No, not fair. And do you mind if I just go back and talk just a little bit more about Andre Jackson, just a bit more, just because, Ben, I understand from the book that you are still Are you still friendly with Andre Jackson? This is the mystery man in Seoul who was part of close to Carl Lewis. He was American and was in the room when you were drinking the beers and doing your drug test. And you believe he spiked your beer, and that's why you tested positive in Seoul. But are you still friendly with this gentleman?
Well, we speak about maybe a few months ago, just keep in touch. So
okay, interesting though. Interesting. This shows what a nice guy you are. You're still friends with the guy you might have ruined your career in sprinting.
Well, I'm a man of God. So I said to myself, he's got the blood of Jesus Christ on his hands. My spirit and my soul is clean. I know what happened in Seoul. I know what I did. I know what they did, and that's final. I know that people out there is skeptical or saying blah blah blah, but you know what? You wasn't there. I was there. So,
but to be friendly with the guy, it's wild. Is the intention here that one day Andre is going to be like, Ben, I got a confession to make?
Well, if you want to have a spirit,
you're all ears.
to be free, I think it's right for him to tell the truth once and for all. But I don't think he probably will, because he's going to look like one of the bad guys nobody not going to have to want to
I'll
talk
say,
to, or
I'll say,
or to even be a friend with, or can they go out? Not only what they did, it's also the attempted murder. So things like that, because I wouldn't take these kind of drugs to harm myself or to kill myself. It's impossible. I wouldn't do that. I love life.
Yeah, you love life. I can see it in your eyes, by the way. Like you seem like you seem comfortable with this. You seem comfortable in this phase of your life at this point.
Because I know what the truth is. And the truth, the way I feel right now and everything else, I feel good about everything.
But you say you know what the truth is, but that's where I get stuck on this, Mary, because so you know what the truth is, but the truth is that you were cheating, but not the way they said you were cheating. Am I saying that?
If you have a 4-year-old and you're in your house and she started crying and you run to the room and you say, Daddy, somebody was in the room with me.
Right.
You said to the 4-year-old, there's nobody here. There's a ghost in the room. But you don't know that. She can know, because kids at that age can sense these different evil or different spirits. We can't. And if you say, no, are you just thinking something wrong with the girl? In my saying this, I know what I did wrong, yes. But like I said, it was a playing field, because I do it better than these people are. And I win the gold medal, making a lot of money, and they didn't want that.
Right.
And they shoved me out to show example that the fastest man in the world get caught judging steroids. Bull. But you know what? Life goes on. I'm still here. And all those people that come against me, they all died.
Okay.
Because of my faith and what I believe in and what it is.
That's great. Okay, that is great. But so Andre Jackson, you're still friendly with the guy. He's the mystery man in the room who you believe spiked your drink so that you would test positive. And I asked this earlier, but I'm just going to pointedly ask it. Ben, do you believe every other man in that 100-meter final in Seoul was taking banned substances?
Yes.
Okay. Including Carl Lewis?
Yes.
Okay. Now, journalist Mary Ormsby, do you believe that's like, this was obviously never proven, because only Ben Johnson was caught.
How can your face growing after certain ages? I saw the guy wear size 9 shoes to size 12 in 1 year.
It's like Barry Bonds, right? I always think of Barry Bonds, right? A hell of a player, but skinny guy.
Who wear braces like a monkey, like a jawbone is going out of his face.
Carl Lewis has braces as an adult.
Come on, it's obviously, where is it, rocket science?
Okay, and one day maybe the Andre Jackson will admit we spiked his drinks, and then this would be sort of the absolution that you're seeking here, and then there will be no like Ben's theory. This will be the fact.
This is facts.
Fascinating. What a fascinating subject.
I almost lose my life in Seoul, man.
Well, tell me, was there a moment where you thought of ending it all?
It's a lucky thing that my body's breaking up very fast.
Can you elaborate? When you test positive and you realize your whole world is falling around you, and is there a moment where you think about doing anything drastic?
Like what? Kill myself?
Yeah.
And let the enemy win? No.
Okay.
No.
Just wasn't sure what you were.
The enemy can't win.
When your life
the enemy can't win. The devil never win me. He works 24/7. The devil can never win me.
I wouldn't bet against you. Devil doesn't get my vote on this one. You're kidding me? Come on. All right. Now I'm going to give you a couple of gifts, and then I'm going to ask you about a more recent chapter that many, many, many people were asking me about. And if I haven't said it already, Ben, I appreciate that you came down here, you sat here. Mary, thanks for connecting us.
Where's my breakfast?
You know what? You do deserve more.
Nice six-pack over there.
No, Ben doesn't get the 6-pack because Ben's clean and sober. That's for you and Paul. But the pasta, you are getting the large meat lasagna before you go, and you're going to love that.
The box is empty.
Yeah, it's in the freezer. Ben, this is no games are being played in this basement. It's all in the up and up. And I already gave you the book on the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball history, but I saw you playing off the measuring tape. Ridley Funeral Home, who hoped they say Ridley Funeral Home. Yeah. Mary, you appreciate that excellent marketing.
It's
right?
okay. I'm still above dirt. It's okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, listen. I will say this. So I learned you're in your early 60s. You're, grandfather of 3, and
Sorry.
I will tell you a joke. Me and my first granddaughter, the first one, she was about 6 years old. And we were in supermarket shopping for something. And she goes, "You're not famous anymore. Nobody knows you." And I said, "Okay, you'll see." Within maybe less than 30 seconds, somebody come up and say, "Ben, can I have a picture with you?" And so I smile at her and take the picture of the guy. And I say, I told you I'm still famous. and then I start walking away from her. And she go, "Grandpa, wake up." And no, she go, "Grandpa, wait for me." I go, "Shh, don't say too loud." I'm too young to be a grandpa.
Well, this
Yes,
is
you
where I was
are.
going there. This is what I'm saying here. The Ridley Funeral Home is, far off future, because you actually do look young, you look fit, you look happy. Like, Mary, what's it like being around Ben and seeing how content he seems and comfortable?
Well, he still has something to prove. Obviously, that's why we're in this book. But the other parts of his life, he works hard. He's clean living, and I think he just stopped drinking not because he had a problem, but because he just wanted to have more clean living. And he looks great. He works out. And one time I said to him towards the end, because I certainly let my fitness go. That's why I'm wearing a big puffy vest during the writing of this book. And I said to Ben at one point, I said, "Ben, writing this book made me fat." And Ben, because he can cut right to the chase so often, he says, "Mary, writing the book had nothing to do with you getting fat." Thanks, Ben.
So
Just say it like it is,
You know what though? I find it refreshing. Even this conversation, sometimes Ben will say something, and I'm like, "Yeah, he just said that." And it's like I notice there's some gaps as I process. Typically, this is an unedited show, so people will hear it's there's no lapses for processing on Toronto Mike. But there's been a few times in this conversation where I have to kind of drink it in and like process what he said, because you just say it. Like, it's very refreshing.
Yeah, setting comes to mind.
Okay. How's this experience been for you?
Pretty good.
I was actually nervous because I said, he's just going to tell it like it is. He said, "I regret everything here. I don't regret anything in my life except coming on Toronto Mike and sitting there for 90 minutes. But I have another gift that I think you're going to dig. And Mary, you got one too. It's these wireless speakers right here. Ooh. So Moneris has sent over that wireless speaker for you, Ben Johnson, and you, Mary Ormsby.
Oh, lovely.
It sounds great. You bring that home with you, but you must listen to season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, because Al Grego has gone out west. He went to Alberta, and he talked to the owner of Mountain Chocolates, and he got their inspiring story of like how they persevered in a tourist town during the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation, supply chain issues. He's been finding out how they manage and sharing that story on Yes, We Are Open, a Moneris podcast, available now, hosted by Al Grego. I also want to shout out the Advantaged Investor. I'm going to ask you in a minute about money, Ben, but if you need advice and financial best practices, you go to the Advantaged Investor podcast from Raymond James Canada, hosted by Chris Cooksey. Good stuff there. Recycle My Electronics is where you go, Ben and Mary, if you have any old electronics, old cables, old tech that you have at home in a drawer, maybe a closet. Don't throw it in the garbage. The chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca and you put in your postal code and you'll find out where you can drop it off to be properly recycled. So look, it was worth the drive. You've got some good swag going home with you, Ben. I got to ask you about something, but because you're so blunt, I feel I can be blunt. I can just call it like it is here. And I got more questions after, the obvious questions about what happened in Seoul, 979, etc. This is the subject that most people wanted to talk about, was a certain ad campaign that seemed to be everywhere. And I realized, like, why did I see this ad so much? Oh, Frank D'Angelo was buying time on Hockey Night in Canada. Okay, so this is why I'm seeing this ad so much. Okay, can I play the ad and then we can have a little real talk about it?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so I think there's 2 here, but let's listen.
Today on our show, we have Ben Johnson. How are you, Ben? Good to have you on. Put your cards on the table. Ben, when you run, do you cheetah?
Absolutely. I cheetah all the time.
Cheetah Power Surge Energy Drink, an all-natural source of energy without caffeine.
My son, there are many roads to finding the secret to the energy of life. If you can snatch the pebble from my hand, Did you cheat on my son?
Absolutely. I cheat all the time.
Cheetah Power Surge caffeine-free energy drink. An all-natural.
All right, Ben. People want to know, and a lot of specific questions, like Diamond Dog, he wants to know, how much did you get paid by Frank D'Angelo for the Cheetah ads?
I make enough money to buy you a drink. but the reason why I did the Cheetah drink is...
Well, that's my big question.
Is because I was out of the media for at least almost 6 years. And I get a phone call from D'Angelo that they want to do this drink called Cheetah drink. And I think it over for about a week or so before I say yes. And I said, what they going with this? They wanted me to say that I cheated by taking steroids or I run like a cheater. So I would play it both ways. And I said, yeah, why not? So the media get on me and say, if I'm making a mockery or a joke over this and blah, blah. But, I should have done it, but it was a good thing to do it at the time. So that was it.
Now, hopefully he gave you a bit more money than it cost to get a drink there. But is this simply like, hey, he's offering me some money to have a little fun at this thing. I'll lean in and cash a check. Although Frank probably gave you unmarked bills in a brown paper bag, but that's a whole different conversation. But you just decided, hey, he's offering me money. I'll take the money and do this thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Any regrets? Although we're having fun playing it in 2024, so it's not so terrible. But any regrets doing that campaign?
Well, like I said, when I think it over, yes, I shouldn't have done it, but it's gone. So I did it. It's final. Water under the bridge. Water under the bridge
here. Yeah. Now, why is it you think you shouldn't have done it? I'm just curious. Why, when you think it over and you think you should not have done the Cheetah ad, why is that?
Well, you can't blow and suck at the same time. But at the same time, I don't want to think that people see me that I'm only take steroids to run fast or to train hard or whatever it is. Sprinter was born, not made. So I know that God gave me a gift, a body, and I use it the best way I can. And like I said in the interview, I did it better than everybody else and come away the top of the world. And when people doesn't get caught on this level, you are a gentleman, and when you get caught, you're a disgrace. I don't believe that people could be able to judge me, and no one could judge me, only Christ. And anybody have to judge me, that they judge themselves first, and that's the way I look at it. All these years coming through, and I know that I over the years doing things or making a living is not very easy. Even though I have a great name in Japan and overseas, that they fly me out time to time to do reality shows over there, and they pay very well. And I've been going there since 1996 for every 2 or 3 years. I've been in Japan doing a lot of shows. So
interesting.
The Japanese have a great love for me, and I love them, and they're great people to be around and to deal with. You can't be late. If you're late, it's an insult for them.
So I can't go to Japan.
Mary's been banned from Japan. That's breaking news.
Yeah,
and Ben, that explains why you were so punctual today. I heard you weren't always that way.
Yes.
I was warned by people.
To be the fastest man in the world, you have to be on time. Right?
That's the irony of it all. Okay. So Ben, what are you up to these days? Like, in addition to these, obviously going to Japan for these appearances, you doing any training? Are you working with anybody?
Well, there's other things in the making overseas with my lawyer, but I can't say much about that.
Okay, no, that's the real talk I'm looking for.
Hush.
That's a wink. Okay.
That's a hush. But
what's going on there?
I'm doing other movies with Paramount Pictures of the rights to do some movie on me, but they say yes in twice in the media, but the final version didn't come out yet. So there's new metric, and Paramount supposed to do a six episode of Ben Johnson Life, but it's on hold right now for now. But there's another company in the States, in the UK, want to do something else. But
interesting.
You see what happened.
Well, hopefully they Mary gets some money for licensing this great book. It should be based on this book, and then Mary can be
That would
involved
be good.
too. Let's get that going. I know people, Ben, so I'm going to make some phone calls after this.
Yay!
I have a question though about so the system. Is the system still dirty? What I mean is, like, can we trust that Usain Bolt was clean? How about like Donovan Bailey, for example? Are you guilty until proven innocent in this sport? Like, I'm curious what you think of these modern, Donovan Modern, 1996, I guess was a while ago now. But can we trust they all ran clean?
Can I just jump in for a second?
Anything.
I know you're not asking this of me, but over the last couple of days, and this is not to do with track and field, but the World Anti-Doping Agency,
China,
is-
yeah, I was reading about that.
they're in a huge scandal right now.
Right.
And here's why, when Ben's head was held up, and I don't want to sound like a crusading journalist, but here's some of the facts. Ben was held up in 88 as the worst doping villain ever,
Right.
and the war on drugs is over because we got this guy, and everyone's going to be scared straight.
Right.
So fast forward 36 years to this week,
Right.
WADA's in a big scandal. They, sort of absolved half the Chinese swim team from doping infractions going into the Tokyo Olympics. Didn't tell anybody, and the Chinese competed and won medals, including gold medals. And this all came to light in the last couple of days with a New York Times expose story. So this is talking about the system breaking down, falling down. Again, benefit of the doubt for some, not for others. People can get away with doping if you're from a powerful country or you've got powerful advocates. So I'm just jumping in to say this because I get so annoyed when I see things happening now, and this was all supposed to be solved after 1988. So big problems with a supposed better system under the World Anti-Doping Agency, which came into play around the year 2000, right? To make doping compliance and enforcement better and evenly applied across the landscape.
No, again, you don't even have to ask to say these things, Mary. You just chime in, say, because always very interesting to hear you make that point. So, Ben, there's two questions before you now. One is, can we trust that, like, an Usain Bolt ran clean? Like, can we trust that the system's no longer dirty, as they say? There's that. And then I wonder now, when you hear in the news about these great infractions, and like Mary described, is there any Schadenfreude or any kind of like feeling like, look, it's still going on. I was a scapegoat.
Well, I can't speak to other sprinters, but I can tell you that the doping stuff or the performance in drugs is still going on. Not because you don't test positive, that doesn't mean that you're clean. You mentioned the name, Donovan Bailey. He's not even around. He came on the scene in 1989. He's running like 11 seconds or even slower. And within 5 years, this guy winning gold medal. So you have to ask the question.
But he's never tested positive.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Why?
So are you guilty till proven innocent?
Why does these athletes train somewhere else? Are they hiding or they want to be seen? You have to ask the question in all these things.
Okay. Now, I was curious. I wasn't sure whether I should even ask, but do you have a relationship with Donovan Bailey, or is there?
We don't like each other. He talked against me, and I was there for him to win the gold medal. In 96, he called me and said that these guys are playing mind games. I told him what to do, and then after doing the interviews, after the gold medal, he threw me under the bus. So we came from the same country. I mean, he's a great sprinter. He's fast, but not fast enough. Donovan Bailey's not in
984 is not as fast as 979.
Donovan Bailey's not in my class of running.
So in your prime, though, you in your prime versus Donovan Bailey in his prime.
No match. Plain and simple.
Interesting. Mary, listen to me. This country of ours and our greatest sprinters. Wow. Okay. There's now I want to simulate that race. Donovan Bailey in his prime. 984 is what he won in gold medal with in 1996. And when you got the gold before they sadly took it away from you because you were caught with the drugs, it was 979. So, and again, you were slowing up at the end there, but that's an interesting discussion to have here. So as we say goodbye, Ben, I'm curious what the future...
If you speak to the expert on track and field and break it down for you, they will tell you who the fastest man in the world is. And it's me. Plain and simple.
Still has the swagger. I feel like you could probably compete today. You're in such good shape here. You ever do any running anymore?
Did you give me a heart attack or something? No. I mean, I do run. I do exercises. I do trying to move the blood around and keep fit and burn out some sugars and some of that thing,
How old were you when you came to Canada?
I was only 14.
14 years old. And I hope I pronounced this right. Trelawney Parish?
Trelawney Falmouth.
Okay. Any chance that's where you live out your final years? Is there any plans to return to Jamaica?
That's where I'm going back pretty soon. Going back to live.
Well, that's what I want to close with here. Okay. Now, why? I mean, I'm just curious why you want to go back to Jamaica and not stay in Canada.
Well, we don't have very much in Jamaica. It's a beautiful island, but what we have, we're happy with. And that's where we were live, and that's where we brought up, and that's where. So, enjoy the beach, enjoy the weather, go for a walk. Relax.
What is it that you're waiting for before you move back to the country in which you were born? Like, are you gonna make some more money than you can afford to kind of retire there? What is holding you back from going there like next week?
Well, money doesn't move me, because if money did move me, I would have killed myself 36 years ago. So, yes, we need money to live, but how much is enough money to live? When it comes to money, I'm not a greedy person. My father's always say, all you need is a car to get from A to B, a house to live in, a small business to make some money. That's all you need. You don't need anything else.
And that warm weather doesn't hurt either.
Warm weather doesn't hurt me at all.
Beautiful country.
Mary and I are going to come visit you in Jamaica.
Sure, you come down, take you around.
We'll be there. Mary, any final thoughts here before we wrap it up? I just checked the clock. Unbelievable the amount of time you guys gave me, and I really do appreciate it, as you know. But Mary, any final thoughts before we say goodbye here?
I think you covered everything, and I'm really, really so pleased you're able to give Ben this platform. Too often people talk about him or at him or around him, and for him to be able to sit here and talk directly to people, I think that's wonderful. So I have no parting thoughts.
No further questions, Your Honor. Okay, I told you this is the Dublin part 2 here. Now, please, Ben, any final thoughts on your way out? Thanks again for being here. Don't leave without the lasagna. We have to take a photo by the Toronto tree. That's what we're calling it now, Mary. And that's every guest gets that, and we'll take one together. I'll take one with Ben. What a pleasure it was to get to know you better. Love the straight shooting, tell it like it is attitude. I wish more people were like that. But Ben, any final words before we say goodbye?
I love you all. Have a good day. Bless you.
Perfect parting words. I'm going to cut that out there. That'll be the new closing of Toronto Mic'd after this song. Every episode I'll play that. Mary Ormsby, the book is called World's Fastest Man, The Incredible Life of Ben Johnson. Now, I noticed the asterisks. I always, this is the thing. I said this the other day. I grew up reading comic books of a character named Asterix. Okay, Asterix is the character. And I read these comic books and I loved them so much. And now I have trouble saying the word asterisk because of Asterix. I need help, right, Mary? Like, is there any hope for me?
Have some Palma pasta. That's better than your other sponsor, the Ridley Funeral Home. So, yeah.
Well, if you eat enough of that, you'll end up there eventually. We all end up there eventually. But thank you, Mary, for writing the book, and thank you for returning to Toronto Mic'd.
Thank you so much.
This will be your final appearance. We'll get you back here again. And Ben, honestly, thank you so much for this time today and for sharing from your heart. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,474th show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike. Make sure you pick up a copy of Mary Ormsby's World's Fastest Man, The Incredible Life of Ben Johnson. It's available now wherever you get your books. Shout out to FOTM Stephen Brunt, who says it was the greatest moment in Canadian sports history. And Brunt's a smart guy. He knows what he's talking about. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. That's Palma Pasta. That's recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's Raymond James Canada. That's the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. That's Moneris. And, of course, Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow when rapper Classified makes his Toronto debut in the Toronto Mike's Basement. See you all then.